Today we're talking about navigating a new career path as an immigrant. So I have here with me, chatting with me is Tobe Nneji. Tobe is Nigerian immigrant in the USA, and we'll be talking about basically how she's been able to navigate a new career path, as an immigrant to the USA.
My name is Tobe, as you've said, and I moved to the United States in 2016. Very wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, completely confused, not having any plans, not knowing what I was going to do. Over the last 4 years, I've pretty much navigated a new career path and set interesting goals within the corporate American space. And I am setting those goals and meeting them. So something must be going on right. Prior to moving to the United States, though, I was in the broadcast media space. I worked as a radio presenter, and then I moved up the ranks within that space as well and got up to being a deputy station manager before I left Nigeria. So I was in the broadcast media space for almost 10 years. I moved to the United States and then got into IT project management, became very interested in the agile workspace and with the agile mindset and just growing within that method of working. And that has led me to where I am now, working as an engagement manager with AWS, where I am mostly focused on, working with whatever client it is that I happen to be working with and helping them navigate their journey through AWS Cloud.
So let's talk about, the move, right? So when you relocated to the US, let's talk about your career journey. What was top of your mind with regards to when you landed? What did you want to do? Did you think that you were going to go back to media or, definitely not IT project management? How did that come about? How were you able to navigate into tech, basically?
So when I came, again, I did not have a plan. I didn't have a plan because I never lived in America, right? So I came to America for the first time at the end of 2015, and I didn't enjoy being in America. I was so confused. I felt lost. It just didn't sit well with me. So I wanted to leave, and I went back to Nigeria because I wanted to stay in Nigeria. I knew how to make money in Nigeria, so I wanted to just be there, But it was a sort of life situation where it was evident that I needed to be here. Like this was the next phase for me. So when I got on that flight and moved here, there was no plan. But of course, because what I knew how to do was broadcast radio, I tried to get a radio job. I did actually get some interviews, but nothing panned out to a point that was tangible. And when it became evident to me that I most likely would not be getting a job in the media space, I started exploring other options and just figuring out something to do to help me get by, So I got a job at a call center at first, and then I got a job as a teacher. I met someone who heard me. As a matter of fact, he heard me doing a live video on Facebook. At that time, I used to do live videos, and he was just almost like he was mesmerized at the way that I was talking. And he literally sat me down and said, explain to me what your plan is in this America that you came. And I'm like, I don't have a plan. No, and then he said, okay, that it's as if you're an intelligent human being. Think about switching into IT. Have you heard about business analysis? Have you heard about IT project management? And at that point I had never heard. So he gave me a book and he, just gave me a bit of an overview and said, go do your research, see if it's something that you care about. If it is, I'll introduce you to someone who can mentor you and help you. And I said, okay, cool. It took me 3 days. I read the book he gave me. I did research. I was like, I can't do this now. This is what I've been doing since. It was just, I found out that it was different verbiage for work that I had actually been doing in Nigeria. And that was the switch for me. It just totally changed everything, right? Because at that point I realized, even though I wasn't wearing a hat that called me a business analyst, all of the work I had been doing in my career in the broadcast media space had business analysis in it. That really was the switch for me. And that just changed the way that I thought about everything. Of course, I worked with my mentor and she guided me, and but everything changed at that point. I think that was the mindset switch that had to happen for me.
It was definitely a mindset switch. And this is something I tell a lot of people, that it starts with the mindset, because that's where the work actually starts. When you believe that I can do this, everything just sort of
Yeah.
aligns for you than when you feel like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know. I never had this title. I've never done this.
Yeah.
This is new. People say, I have no experience. I'm like, but you have 10 years of experience, right? And tell me about
Yep.
what you've done. And they say everything. I'm like, okay, this is what you were doing. This is what is called in business analysis terms, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's the struggle
Right.
of immigrants face, and that is the mindset thing. So how were you able to, sort of hone your mindset to, making this transition?
That initial switch for me sort of unlocked a part of my brain, right? And what that part of my brain now understands is that all of the work that everybody on earth does is to put out corporate fires. You're trying to make sure that you're solving a problem in the most efficient way. Whatever kind of work it is that you do, that is the underlying goal of your job, right? And so the most important thing that you bring onto the table is your problem solving skill. As long as you're able to hone that skill and figure out a way to communicate that you're honing that skill, or that you've learned how to do this thing, or that you're capable of solving problems in a way that either makes the company money or saves the company money, you're good. You're a valuable person, right? And that is something that I've held on to, and I'm probably going to hold on to it for the rest of my life, because
Exactly.
that has opened doors for me. And then the next thing for me, where my mindset was involved, it was understanding that, okay, as much as that is the underlying thing, there are other key strengths. There are other things that I have to have more than other people to make me competitive. There are other things that people have more than me, right? And then, of course, to get any job done and be efficient in that job, you have to learn the tools. You have to learn the environment of that job. So for me, it now became a thing where I understood that I could do the job because I understood how to solve problems. And then I figured out that I could learn the tools as well. As long as I can learn the tools, I'm good.
So let's talk about, the surgeon into tech, into IT. How are you able to sort of navigate that and, move through, different roles and, to where you are right now today? How are you able to do that?
I would say that it's a lot to do with the learning mindset and just staying teachable. And as a person, I've always been someone who gets bored. You know, I learn things, I get happy learning that thing, and I get it done, and I want to learn the next thing, or I want to do the next thing. And that could be detrimental if you don't use it, if you don't use that sort of character trait very well. So I had to learn how to create something positive out of that character trait, right? So what that did for me was, at my previous employment, every time I saw an opportunity for a training, I would reach out to my manager. Hey, there's this training. Can I sign up for it? Will you approve? And I would go ahead to get the training done. And that's how I got quite a lot of my certificates. I just kept on attending trainings. There were trainings that, of course, they wouldn't approve for me. I would go ahead and pay for it for myself. If there's something I need to learn to get me to the next level, then I will learn it and get to the next level. It is a sort of thought where I say, you need to make sure that you don't become a stumbling block in your own way. Don't be the reason you don't take the next step. That I think has been the biggest driving force. I never see learning as intimidating, even when it doesn't come to me in the way that I would prefer. I would figure out a way. It might take me more time, but I would figure out a way. And I think that's a very solid mindset that people could adopt.
How do you sort of, navigate and grow and sort of, communicate your value to prospective employers? Because I find it's another struggle for immigrants to, first of all, think that they can actually be rich, that they can actually accomplish so much, that they could earn six figures and beyond, that they could live the quality of lives that they used to see on TV, that they can actually live those lifestyles. But it takes a bit of sacrifice, but it does happen.
It
So
does.
how can I get all the certification? How can I still grow, communicate my value without that fear of, oh, will they take me? Those limiting beliefs like accent, like, oh, I don't have a USA or Canadian degree, or some of them say I don't have that local experience, like all that stuff. How do we grow past those limiting beliefs that kind of hold us down, as immigrants?
Don't worry about your accent. What you need to be concerned about is communicating, using the correct words, saying the right things.
Yeah.
And for me, learning to say the right things takes practice. You have to practice talking about yourself. You have to practice communicating. You have to practice telling people the best parts of you, selling yourself. And to do that, you also have to take time to know yourself. Anyone that has any kind of work experience, you could get yourself stuck in that place where you're only thinking about the job functions that you were doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're only thinking about the fact that you created an Excel sheet or that you wrote code, right? You forget about the personality, heart, and mind that you put into the task. You
Yeah.
forget about the subtle skills and your communication and your ability to get everybody together to actually get this goal and set the ball rolling. You forget about that. So
Yeah.
you actually need to spend some time to do that deep work of getting to know yourself and
Mhm.
getting to know what your key strengths are and write that down, right? Now, when you write that down, weave stories of your past experience around those strengths. Weave
Mm.
stories of your past experiences around, because sometimes you're going to see weaknesses. So you need to spend time to know who you are, know your selling points, and learn how to communicate your story, highlighting your selling points. Then the final trick is to learn the language of whatever industry you're trying to go into, because you now need to learn how to tell your story using the language of the new industry.
So another thing a lot of immigrants struggle with is they say, "Oh, I don't have the education or the experience because I didn't school here." So I didn't school here. I didn't go to an Ivy League school, or I don't have that experience. I haven't worked in IT in America or in Canada, so I can't get the job. They or those kind of thing beliefs that they have. How can people, immigrants that have this kind of beliefs and struggles, how can they go past this? Because I find a lot of times it's the lies that we tell ourselves that kind of hold us bound.
So I want to split people into sort of two groups, right? Of course, there's the group of people who have never worked before; they don't have any sort of work experience. Now, when I talk to those people, it's a different ball game, because you don't even have experience to pull from. And I typically encourage those people to own it, own the fact that you don't have that experience to pull from, and look for things that are entry level. As long as you have a university education, they're not going to say because you did not school in
Mm,
North America, they're not going to hire you. They won't hire you because they don't think you can do the job. That's the only reason they will not hire you. Now,
exactly.
you need to figure out ways to talk about your academic experience or your university experience, or even your journey with moving to North America. You can literally take your entire process of applying for the Canadian PR, for instance. You can turn that into a project. You can say, you know what, the biggest project I've worked on is moving from Africa or wherever I'm moving from to Canada. This is how I did it. And then you talk through your steps. I think when you don't have any experience, you need to be creative. You need to creatively think about any other non-work experience that you have and try to conceptualize those things as actual work projects. And then
Mm,
if you've had work experience, we need to do that deep dive. Forget about not having experience in the industry. You have experience working with people. You have experience delivering results. You have
yeah.
experience solving problems. You're good to go.
So there's another thing that a lot of immigrants kind of struggle with when they're trying to navigate their career path, and that's sort of building their personal brand. And sometimes, it sounds very vague to people when we say build your personal brand. Like it's vague to people when you say build your personal brand, have a great personal brand. It's definitely going to help you, in your career journey. So how has building your own personal brand, helped you? And then of course, what, can, immigrants learn from your own experience?
So for me, I did not start out with an intentional
Mm,
goal to build a personal brand. Like I've pretty much expressed, a lot of things started out completely hazy and confusing and just me not knowing what I wanted to do.
yeah.
But over time, I found, there were things that I found myself interested in. There were things that I was more aligned towards. And I again did research because you know what I said about lofty financial goals? I've set very lofty goals. And so everything I'm doing is to make sure that this lofty goal I've set that I want to achieve by the time I'm 40, 50, and all of that, I'm winding my way towards achieving that, right? So I sort of had to take stock of what I found myself enjoying and the ways I found myself succeeding. And then I had to figure out how to wrap that around myself in a way that I could monetize and that I could use to propel myself forward,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what, and you know, it's also that mindset that helped me say, okay, cool, within the agile space, I'm going to find a niche because right now I'm focused on helping people imbibe agile values within their personal life. So it's personal agility.
Yeah.
And I thought about, okay, I care a whole lot about psychology. I care a whole lot about, you know, human success and just how human beings can live more valuable lifestyles. And I literally love the agile mindset and all of the methodologies that help to achieve um, agile values, right? And I'm like, okay, how can I take all of these things and wrap them together? And I
Yeah.
started to, in very small ways, I started to do that. So
Yeah.
I would say that building a personal brand, first of all, starts with you identifying the things that you like and that you
Oh,
care about, and
yeah.
then really start having those things be part of who you are, and then start talking about that part of who you are. You know,
Exactly.
it takes time, and social media is great, but then it's also crowded. So if you're not someone that's like really social media savvy, you might get lost in the crowd. But eventually, the person that you are, the personality that you're putting out there, is going to tie back together. And when it counts the most, it will propel you forward.